In 1918, a killer roamed the streets of New Orleans, casting a long, dark shadow over the city. He haunted jazz lovers with a chilling threat: play jazz or face his axe. The ultimatum was clear and terrifying. This wasn't a request. It was a chilling ultimatum, delivered with the force of fear, a demand that echoed through the streets. The city, known for its vibrant music scene, found itself in the grip of terror. The usual lively atmosphere was replaced by an eerie silence. The air, usually alive with the sound of trumpets and trombones, grew heavy with dread. The music that once brought joy now carried a note of fear. New Orleans, a city that danced to its own rhythm, was now dancing to the tune of a phantom. The Axeman's presence was felt everywhere. The Axeman, as he came to be known, had arrived. His shadow loomed large over the city, a constant reminder of the danger lurking in the dark. His arrival was announced not by fanfare but by the chilling silence of fear. The city held its breath, waiting for his next move. People whispered his name in hushed tones, their voices barely audible above the mournful wail of a distant saxophone. The fear was palpable. The fear was palpable. It seeped into the very fabric of the city, turning its vibrant tapestry into a somber shroud. The once lively streets were now cloaked in darkness. New Orleans, the birthplace of jazz, was holding its breath. The city was on edge, every corner hiding a potential threat. It was waiting, watching for the next gruesome discovery, the next chilling note. The Axeman's reign of terror had only just begun. Then came the letter. It arrived without warning, a harbinger of dread, a letter as chilling as the icy breath of death itself. The ink, smeared and faded, seemed to bleed with malice. Addressed to the people of New Orleans, it was a macabre message from the Axeman himself. The envelope bore a sinister aura. His words, scrawled across the page, sent a shiver down the spines of every citizen who laid eyes upon them. Each sentence was a dagger of fear. The letter was a confession, a boast, and a promise, all rolled into one. It was a chilling testament to his twisted mind. The Axeman claimed a fondness for jazz. This unexpected detail added a bizarre twist to his terrifying persona. So much so that he declared he would spare anyone who had a jazz band playing in their home on the night of his next outing. It was a strange, almost surreal demand. It was an odd request, a bizarre twist in an already twisted tale. The city was left in a state of bewilderment. A killer with a penchant for jazz? It was almost unfathomable. The juxtaposition of music and murder was haunting. This letter, this terrifying piece of correspondence, threw the city into a frenzy. Panic and confusion spread like wildfire. The newspapers lapped up the story, printing every gruesome detail. Headlines screamed of the Axeman's threats. Fear, like a contagion, spread through the streets of New Orleans. Doors were locked and hearts were gripped with terror. The Axeman wasn't just a killer, he was a spectre, a phantom playing a deadly tune on the strings of their fear. His presence was an ominous shadow over the city. The Axeman's calling card was as brutal as it was consistent. His weapon of choice, an axe, was a crude and brutal instrument reflecting the savagery of his crimes. He would often use a chisel to gain entry to his victims' homes, a chilling testament to his meticulous planning. The darkness of night was his cloak, and silence, his accomplice. His victims were often Italian-American grocers. He would break into their homes in the dead of night, his axe moving with swift, silent brutality. The darkness would echo with the thud of the axe, followed by an eerie silence that was more terrifying than any scream. The Axeman didn't discriminate in his choice of victims. Men, women, and even children fell prey to his reign of terror. He would often leave their bodies where they lay, a gruesome tableau for the police to find. The sight was enough to turn even the most hardened officer's stomach. The killings were savage, brutal, and seemingly random. One of the Axeman's earliest victims was Joseph Maggio, a grocer who was brutally murdered along with his wife Catherine. The savagery of the attack shocked the city. Their faces were disfigured beyond recognition, their bodies bearing the full brunt of the Axeman's fury. The community, already on edge, was shaken to its core. Then came the Cortimiglia family. The parents, Charles and Rosie, were found brutally murdered in their own home, their young daughter Mary still clutching her doll as she lay dead beside them. The brutality of the act sent shockwaves through New Orleans. The image of the murdered family seared into the city's collective memory. The attacks continued, each one as brutal and terrifying as the last. The Axeman was indiscriminate, his victims united only by their fear and the gruesome manner of their deaths. Each victim, each life extinguished, added another layer of fear to the city already shrouded in terror. The city of New Orleans was in a state of panic. The once vibrant streets were now deserted after dark. The joyful melodies of jazz, once the city's lifeblood, were replaced by the eerie silence of fear. People were afraid to leave their homes, terrified that they might become the Axeman's next victim. The police were baffled. Despite their best efforts, the Axeman remained an elusive phantom. They investigated every lead, followed every whisper, but the killer seemed to vanish into thin air. Frustration mounted with each passing day, each dead end fueling the public's growing anxiety. Theories abounded. Some whispered that the Axeman was a voodoo practitioner, his crimes fueled by dark magic. Others claimed he was a deranged musician, his sanity shattered by the very music he claimed to love. Every theory, however outlandish, only served to heighten the sense of dread that hung over New Orleans. In a city gripped by fear, jazz became more than just music. It was a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope in the face of terror. The Axeman's chilling demand for jazz music had an unintended consequence. It breathed new life into the city's music scene. Jazz clubs, once frequented by a select few, were now filled to the brim. People flocked to these havens of music, seeking solace in the syncopated rhythms and soulful melodies. It was as if the city, in its hour of need, was clinging to its musical heritage as a shield against the darkness. Every note played, every chord struck was a defiant act. It was a way for the people of New Orleans to reclaim their city, to drown out the fear that threatened to consume them. The music was a testament to their spirit, their refusal to be cowed by terror. March 19th, 1919, the night the Axeman threatened to strike again. The city held its breath. Never before had New Orleans been so silent, the usual buzz of life replaced by a tense anticipation. But amidst the fear, a spirit of defiance emerged. That night, jazz filled every corner of New Orleans. From grand concert halls to humble living rooms, the sound of music was everywhere. Bands played with a fervor like never before, their music a defiant cry against the darkness. Every home was a fortress of sound, every note a prayer for safety. But the Axeman still claimed a victim that night. Despite the city's symphony of sound, the Axeman found his way into the home of a grocer named Mike Pepitone. He murdered him with the same chilling brutality he had displayed before. The city awoke to the news with a collective shudder. The music, it seemed, had not been enough. The Axeman was never caught. He vanished into the annals of history, leaving behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions. The investigation, once a whirlwind of activity, gradually slowed to a standstill. Leads turned cold. Witnesses, hampered by fear and time, offered little help. Theories continued to swirl. Some speculated that the Axeman had fled New Orleans, seeking anonymity elsewhere. Others whispered that he was closer than anyone dared to believe, hiding in plain sight. Each theory was debated and dissected, but none offered a definitive answer. The Axeman's motives remained a mystery. Was he driven by madness, by a perverse love for jazz, or was there a darker, more sinister reason behind his reign of terror? The answers, locked away in the mind of a killer, were lost to time. Though the Axeman's reign of terror ended as abruptly as it began, his presence lingered. The fear he instilled in the hearts of New Orleanians became a part of the city's lore, a dark chapter that would never be forgotten. His story, passed down through generations, served as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. It was a tale that grandparents would tell their grandchildren, a story that would send shivers down their spines. The Axeman became a spectre of New Orleans history, a chilling reminder of the city's brush with terror. His legend grew with each retelling, Becoming more haunting and mysterious, he became the stuff of legends, his story told and retold in hushed whispers. In bars and cafes, people would gather to share their own versions of the tale, each adding their own twist. The city that once trembled in fear now embraced the tale of the Axeman, turning it into a part of its rich cultural tapestry. His story woven into the fabric of New Orleans' identity, a testament to the city's resilience and ability to transform fear into folklore. The Axeman's story serves as a reminder that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved, forever lingering in the shadows. It is a reminder that even in the face of fear, the human spirit can endure. The people of New Orleans showed that they could rise above the terror and continue to thrive. And in the heart of New Orleans, where jazz continues to flow like a mighty river, the spirit of the city remains unbroken. The legend of the Axeman continues to echo through the ages, a haunting melody that will never fade away.